Thinking about peer groups this morning. Are they worth it? Let's talk about that. Hey, thanks for joining us today. Today we are at the Manufacturers Association here in York. I'm with Bryan Kelley. He is from the High Center for Family Business. And today we're going to talk about peer groups. Are they worth it? Before we get into that, Bryan, can you tell me a little bit more just to kind of define what a peer group is for our discussion?
Sure. Our executive peer group program brings together 8 to 10 really, executives from family or privately held companies, two different types, CEO groups, ownership groups, or key execs. And the premise is to bring these folks together and process issues and share ideas, the things that are going on at their companies. And it's a confidential setting, so no companies are competitors or have competitive or personal issues with one another. It's a safe space, confidential, and very specific agenda. And you spend 4 hours 6 times a year going through your financials, sharing a little bit about your personal and professional when you check in,
Right.
and then you basically the lion's share of the meeting, 90 minutes, is spent processing issues.
Nice. Now, I have a peer group, so I'm part of the High Center peer groups. But in addition, I have kind of a unsanctioned peer group where I am connected with a couple of owners of printing facilities kind of across the nation. One is actually in Canada, one's in California, like near Los Angeles, one's in Jacksonville, one's in the Midwest, and one of those states in the middle. God, I don't know what state it is. But then we can get together, again, because we're not competing,
Right.
we can be open and transparent in our conversations. And so I would like to start with, this is going to be a discussion of why peer groups or why not. And I would like to start with one of the reasons I came up with is why not? And I'll just start there. And transparency is it, right? You talked about not having competition in the room or being open and transparent and bringing issues. I would think that one of the reasons that you might not join a peer group is if that peer group lacks transparency or has that mechanism of dealing with each individual's owners, right? Because if you don't have that level of transparency or even accountability, if they're not holding your feet to the fire, then it's really just a paid friend group, right? They need to be challenging you on your business.
Right.
So that was one of the reasons I could think of why someone might not join a peer group is if they attend one and they go, hey, nobody shared anything that was personal or even sensitive to their company, right? People need to be talking about the hard stuff.
Correct. And I would say sometimes it takes time for groups to gel. Trust is a huge factor.
Sure.
And really trusting and being vulnerable, being able to share personal and business issues with folks. When you first come in, you don't know anybody. And to trust that it's going to stay in that room no matter what, and that you'll find that folks will kind of feel each other out. But the agenda keeps everybody on track, and then once it comes to issue processing, I think that's where there's always the first one in. It's like, well, look, I've got something I need to talk to you. It's a personal or a business issue, and I think once that happens, and then there's trust, and there's really good advice and idea sharing, typically groups will then rise to the occasion. However, you're right. If there isn't that willingness to be vulnerable and to kind of put yourself out there, or you were signed up for a peer group and you didn't really want to be in it, then that would be that's certainly an issue of why not.
Sure. one of the key differences between, I'll call it my print owners peer group and the peer group that I'm in with High Center, is facilitation and regimen, right? So you mentioned an agenda. There's a regular meeting schedule. When we go there, there is a facilitator from the High Center who is walking us through, hey, we're going to talk about this, we're going to talk about this. This is the time to bring up issues. Here's the time where we hold each other accountable for things that we said last time. So there's that structure to that one. Whereas my print owners group has no structure, right? We don't pay for anything, right? We're not paying to be part of that peer group, but we also don't have a regular time that we are meeting. It's kind of ad hoc. Someone has an issue and they just need help, so we round up everybody on a Zoom call and discuss the issue. And what I find is they both have value, but when I think peer group, I think of the one through the High Center because it has that structure. But it comes with my second reason that I might not do it, and that's cash, right? Peer groups aren't free,
Right.
As a,
Sure.
a facilitated one,
Sure,
isn't
sure.
isn't free. I guess my question is how many times do you find that cost is really the issue why someone might not do it, or how many times do you think people are just using cost as an excuse as to why they might not do it?
Cost typically isn't an issue. Not very often. It's $1,250 a year, and so when you break that down by meeting six times a year, it's really not a. I mean, again,
And there's
$1,200 is
so many other benefits outside of that.
correct. Yeah. So I think that that typically isn't an objection or a reason why. It's the objection's time. Can I commit to that 4 hours, 6 times a year? And that doesn't sound like a lot of time, but as you know, as a business professional, in order to block out that time, something else might need to come off the calendar.
And it's hard.
And that's hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the initial commitment, once there's a commitment, and then our members find value, and they're, I've had the members show up and they're like, you can tell they're running late, they're frustrated, they got their phone, but then when the meeting progresses, and then when the meeting's over, I've had folks will say, I'm really glad I came today.
Right.
This was 4 hours well spent, and I got to tune out the rest of the world.
I've never regretted it, even when I've had to leave a fire at my business, not literally a fire, but you know what I mean, a crisis, some level of, which are never really as big of a crisis as one calls them.
Yeah, but it's all hands. I mean,
But it's all hands. If I've left that, I've never regretted going to the peer group. So let's talk about what are some of the positives, right? I've mentioned a couple of the negatives just because I'm bought in, right? I personally believe in peer groups, but I know not everybody does. So we've hit some of the negatives. I'm open to hearing more, but I would love to know, what are some of the positives? What do people get from participating in a peer group?
I think there's several. Of course, I'm biased because I facilitate and lead 7 different groups. I would say the first thing that comes to mind, I'm not alone.
Right.
It's the feel, felt, found. I'm not the only one that has this issue, and there's professionals in the room that I can bounce things off of, and so there's comfort when that initial barrier comes down as far as, well, what's going on here, and do I fit, or do I really how do I participate, how do I get involved? A lot of folks will sit back and maybe not interject or share initially, but then something triggers, wow, I had that same issue with whether it was a personnel issue or it was an operational issue, and that's when the barriers come down.
I'm not alone is huge.
Yeah, I'm not alone, and there are others here who have been through this. Either they've done it, this is something that they did years ago, or they're experiencing the same situation right now.
I mean, I have a relatively small company for a printing company in this area. and to be able to sit in the same room with companies that generate, some of them 10 times, 20 times the amount of revenue that I generate, and to have that level of wisdom and experience in the room makes a huge difference, right? They may not understand my exact challenge, but their businesses are big enough that they can wrap their head around it and still speak volumes into exactly what my challenge is and how I need to address it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yep, absolutely. And that's I think the other thing that we notice that there's learning the learning that takes place from an idea that comes out of nowhere in those conversations. It's like, because then there's a qualifying question: how did you do that, or what did you mean by that? And then all of a sudden, as a facilitator, I'm watching the clock, and so you have to make sure that the conversation isn't a tangent, but at the same time, you don't want to shut it down too early, because there's great information exchanging.
Right. So I'd like to talk about that for just a second. As a business owner or as a key executive in a business, really the people I interact with on a daily basis are the same people that I interact with all the time. Mm-hmm. So in this setting, I have 6 to 7 other folks who are running various types of businesses who can now speak at a business level into that issue, or I can learn from their challenge. I don't even have to have the challenge. That is an excellent point you've made about that organic flow of a conversation, how there might be a nugget that maybe nobody else cares about, but I'm sitting here thinking, wow, that speaks to my problem so closely. And now I have the opportunity to ask a few questions from the subject matter expert right here in this room.
Right.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What else? Why else might someone join a peer group?
Well, I think from a development standpoint, just a willingness to learn. And I think when you kind of check your, I'm going to say your ego, but you check that at the door, and you realize if you're open to learning with 8, 9 folks in the room who have different backgrounds and run different businesses, you just brought up, like you get a completely different perspective. And they're also in different stages of the journey. They may be startup, scaling up, going from that entrepreneur to a scaling up, situation, or they're mature and they've been in business for a long time. They're still learning. They're like, because if you've been in business for 25 years and you have a company or a member, an executive from a company that's only been in business for 3 to 5 years, you're like, wow, I remember when I was just starting up and I forgot that, or I can maybe, bring that, attack it that way, that problem, because they're more nimble as a startup or a 3 to 5 years in business versus 30, 40, 50 years in business. You see that epiphany take place as well in the room, where they say, I'm gonna try that, because we used to do A, B, C, D 20 years ago, and as you know, as you grow and mature, you sometimes forget that stuff.
Sure. So I have another question to ask you that wasn't on our docket. We didn't discuss this one ahead of time. Do you think AI will impact peer groups? Do you think AI, I don't imagine that it replaces it, because there's so much just interaction. Do you think AI can enhance or change that peer group?
I think it's changing now, because we talk about it all the time. AI is a subject that comes up. We're using it for this, or we're doing, our back office, we're using it to create documents or look at documents, or bots on your website for customer service.
Right.
And those are things that are they're making a positive impact because those conversations are happening. I don't believe it'll replace.
I don't think it can.
It can't. Because if anything, it's a hot topic for sure within the peer group construct. And I think that's a good thing that people are talking about it. I don't see it replacing the human element and talent management and leadership. I don't see that happening.
I agree. I definitely think it could enhance, right? As I am preparing to go to my peer group or something, I may use some level of AI to prepare something or help me flesh out an idea. Mm-hmm. But then I really want to take it to my group of peers, not back to AI to find out.
Yeah, it's typically, we'll see, hey, I threw in some parameters for a job description. Look what they came up with.
Sure, right.
or a strategic plan, or just different things that they're excited to share with the group. But it really needs that human oversight to really kind of like, wow, yeah, but it kind of missed the mark here.
Agreed.
But it's trying. Business owners and executives are trying to figure out how to utilize it in an efficient way, and so that their folks can do other things.
Sure.
And not just some of the busy work that's been done for years that can now be turned over to a really helpful tool.
Fantastic. All right. Hey, thank you guys for joining us. If there's a topic that you would like to have discussed on Is It Worth It, you can email me at info@thinkhh.com. We'll see you next time.